Hey, what's going on, Ram fans? Man, a lot going on with our Los Angeles Rams the last few days. Practice squad promotions to the 53, guys going on IR, picking up guys off of waivers, signing guys to the practice squad. And I thought I'd do a little review of this roster and all these moves that they've been making and try to figure out what it's going to look like on Sunday night when this team takes the field. My best shot at it. And, a lot of this is guesswork, but I think you can all kind of think along with me as we go through this. First things to note, as you know, Rob Havenstein, Tyler Higbee, Quentin Lake all go to IR. Harrison Mevis, the kicker, is promoted to the active roster. They still have Joshua Carty on the 53 though, and I don't know if this is just a way of protecting their two kickers, or if it's maybe there's going to be a move by Sunday. They only have 51 guys on the roster right now, so they have the room. 3 guys go to IR. They promote 1 guy. So there's going to be some practice squad promotions and maybe some somewhat permanent additions to the 53 as well. I'll get into that in a minute here. And then they signed Christopher Smith, a defensive back. They claimed him off of waivers from the Raiders. Let's talk about him a little bit. Out of Georgia, 5'11", 195. Been with the Raiders for 3 years. Didn't get a lot of action, though. Defensive back Alex Johnson is out of UCLA. No history to speak of in the NFL. And outside linebacker Jesse Luketa, they signed him. He's a former Cardinal 7th-round pick. And by the way, A.J. Green, still showing on the Rams practice squad, but he was claimed by the Dolphins. And so I think what they're doing here is they're going to have to promote someone to the 53 with down to 8 healthy defensive backs. So is it one of these guys? I suspect it's going to be, I'll save that for a minute here. So let's look at this roster right now. Health-wise, at quarterback, we're fine. Same 3 guys. Bennett will be inactive for sure on Sunday night. Then we have the 4 running backs. Extremely, very deep there. No one's hurt. Hunter will be inactive. That seems to be the pattern. And then we have Nakua, Adams, Whittington, and Mumpfield. And now remember, Tutu Atwell on IR and Xavier recovering from a concussion. So it seems to me it'd be very risky to just go with this 5. I mean, if Smith can't go, obviously they're going to promote someone from the practice squad, even if he is technically okay or on the borderline. He's probably going to be inactive, is what I'm saying, and they need to, whether he is or not, they need to add another wide receiver, I think. Now, I don't think Smith and a 5th wide receiver would be active, but I think you follow me what I'm trying to say here. Look for a practice squad promotion at the wide receiver position. Tight end, Parkinson, Allen, and Ferguson. So you want to go 13 personnel, you're going to promote either Mark Redman or Nick Muse. So there's another position group that needs to be replenished a little bit, unless they go with 3, which is basically saying, we're going to forego the 13 personnel for a week. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to promote a wide receiver and a tight end. And remember, they got 51 on the roster. They're going to promote, they're going to have a handful of guys inactive anyways, the Bennetts and the Hunters. So they can promote a handful of guys if needed. Add some to the 53 as permanent players, perhaps. I don't know how they're going to handle that. Offensive line, I think they're just going to roll with these guys, and maybe just Bo Limmer will be inactive. That's Alaric Jackson, Steve Avila, Coleman Charlton, Kevin Dotson, Warren McClendon, who I think will be the starting right tackle, Justin Dedich. And in the past, Humphreys or Quisenberry have been inactive along with Limmer. I think in this situation, Humphreys and Quisenberry will both be active, backing up McClendon and Alaric Jackson. I think that's pretty clear that they're going to do that there. I don't think they need to promote any offensive linemen from the practice squad because they've been keeping 2 inactive already. And Sunday night, it'll just be 1. That would be Bo Limmer. Now, on the defensive side, defensive line's extremely healthy. They've been rolling with Ford, Turner, Fisk, Davis, Hamilton, and Murchison. Deshaun Johnson, typically inactive. And outside linebacker still very healthy. Trying to put a nice positive spin on this if you haven't figured that out yet. We're really good at really healthy at outside linebacker as well. Verse, Young, Stewart, and Hampton. Remember, they did make a switch at on the practice squad of the outside linebacker. When they signed Lukeda, they let go Muhammad, the ex-USC edge rusher. And middle linebacker were squared away there as well. Landman, Spates, Dolak, and Reeder. And defensive back, this is where it gets a little interesting. Witherspoon, Akilla Witherspoon, that is, and Quentin Lake, both on IR now. So they're down to 8 guys. Durant, Forbes, and Williams, the primary cornerbacks. Josh Wallace, Jalen McCullough have been getting a lot of snaps. Roger McCreary, who they picked up in that trade, has not seen a defensive snap yet. And then Cam Kinchins and Cameron Curl. So they're a little thin here, obviously. And the first question we have to ask is what happens with that Quentin Lake role? And if you're listening to Chris Shula, the man of the hour is going to be Josh Wallace. They love this guy. It isn't a question, as Chris Shula says, what he can do. It's what he can't do. So they have a big vote of confidence for him. And I think that's going to allow McCullough to stay in the same role. What it does do is make them a little bit thin at safety if someone gets banged up. Now, if McCreary, he's going to be he's going to provide some depth at the star position and nickel position, perhaps. But I think they're going to promote a safety, and I'll get to that in a second. A safety from the practice squad, and they got some options there, or maybe a cornerback, but I think it's going to be a safety. And then 4 special teamers, Cardi, Mevis, Evans, and McQuaid. And is Cardi going to be active on Sunday night? Your guess is as good as mine. I've been kind of arguing for that. And with these injuries, maybe, does it open the door, perhaps, for them saying, hey, let's have Cardi with the dirty kicks, Mevis with the field goals? I don't know. Probably not going to happen. I imagine Cardi will be inactive, or does Cardi get cut? I think they have some breathing room until after Sunday. They're waiting for an opportunity, I think, for Mevis to try a 38, 44-yard field goal and give them a little bit of confidence in their kicking game. It's a strange situation they are in, needless to say, for a team that many folks are ranking as the number 1 team in the NFL right now, and they got kicker issues. Quite the shame. Now the IR list, there it is for you. Tutu Atwell, Akilla Witherspoon, Keir Thomas, Quentin Lake, Rob Havenstein, and Tyler Higbee. And the biggest concern here, as I mentioned with the Keys to Victory episode with Ian, is the leadership and the guys that make up the soul of this team, guys like Higbee, Lake, and Havenstein. Now, just a little bit more of we're just accelerating another youth movement here. Josh Wallace coming in, Warren McClendon coming in, and Terrence Ferguson getting a bigger role at tight end. But it is a shame to lose all these guys, and maybe we'll get Atwell back pretty soon. Not sure how long these other guys are going to be out, and Witherspoon and Lake, man, if this team, when we get to the playoffs and we begin our Super Bowl push, what a shot in the arm it would be to get Witherspoon and Lake back for that. Offensive line, I think we're going to be okay. Not throwing shade on Rob Havenstein. Well, maybe I am a little bit, but he hasn't been playing up to his standards. I think he'd be the first one to tell you. But it's going to be Warren McClendon time for now. And if he falters, you got DJ Humphreys and David Quisenberry waiting in the wings. But I think it's going to be McClendon. He played fairly well when he was in there. By the way, before I move on, I wanted to remind you, we have teamed up with MyBookie. You can go to their website, mybookie.website/joinwithrams, and use that Rams Up promo code up to $500 in bets fully covered. My one bet last week I pushed on. I had the Giants +7. I haven't gotten mine together yet for this week. I shared a couple that I really liked. I'm a sucker for teams that are getting 13 plus points, and I think there's at least one of those. And keep an eye out for this coming week, Thanksgiving week. My bookie has quite the deal shaken for Black Friday, that Black Friday game. So make sure you tune in and get the details on that. It's going to be a really good opportunity to double your money, I think is what it's going to happen. So back to the the practice squad real quickly. Any of these guys going to be factors? You got on the offensive line, AJ Curry and Dylan McMahon. They won't be needed this Sunday night, I don't think. And then you have Mark Redmond and Nick Muse. And by the way, the other Ram besides Xavier Smith that's limited is Nate Landman, but I suspect he'll be good to go. And if they have to roll with Sean Dolak in his place, I don't think they'd promote a linebacker here. So who else we got? We got the tight ends, Redmond and Muse, wide receivers, Scott, Presley, and Edwards. And this could be the day one of them gets promoted with Xavier Smith potentially banged up and Tutu Atwell still out. Who that might be, you got me. Scott is the one with the more NFL experience. Edwards, the guy with the size. Presley with the return capabilities. But I still, as my special assistant said, when Xavier was banged up once before, hey, get Presley out there. But I'm just not sure if they're going to turn over punt returning duties to a rookie at this point in the season. They'll run Kyron Williams or Jordan Whittington or Blake Corum back there, I think, if Xavier can't go. The designated fair catcher, much like Cooper Kupp last year. The linebackers, Neal and Lukeda, and no much ado about nothing there. And then the defensive backs, and I think one of these guys is going to get promoted, I would think. Lampkin, Johnson, Smith, Engel, and Valcarcel. Now, who is most likely? I think it might be a safety. Engel would be my choice. So we'll see what happens there. If they want to go with a guy that can cover in the slot or more of a coverage guy, I guess it would be Lampkin. And then we get two defensive linemen, Norton and Heflin. But they're probably very disappointed to know, we really have stayed extremely healthy on the defensive line. And I am indeed knocking on wood right now quietly so as not to ruin this recording. And then we have two positions not accounted for on these practice squad, running back and quarterback. So what are they going to do? What do they do? What are the Rams going to do this Sunday? No changes at the offensive line, but Humphreys and Quisenberry will both be active for the first time, I think. And like I said, Josh Wallace will take over for Quentin Lake. I think tight end Muse gets promoted, and either Tanner Engel or Cam Lampkin gets promoted. And that's one I don't feel really good about. I'd be very surprised if they rolled with 8 cornerbacks, and I'd be very surprised if they went with 2 of the new additions to the practice squad at defensive back, Christopher Smith and Alex Johnson. I believe that they are just adding some additional bodies in the practice squad because one of these other guys that have been hanging around will get promoted. And you know what? If AJ Green hadn't got snagged, he might have been the guy because they have promoted him once before. And a wide receiver gets promoted. I just discussed that. It depends on what they think they need. I don't think it'll be Presley. Like I said, it'll either be Edwards or Tyler Scott. So let's see how accurate I am. And I like doing this. I know it's just guesswork, but it's kind of fun to try to think ahead of the general manager a couple of days before the game, and try to guess what they're going to do. And there could be more moves coming. Like I say, there's only 51 on the active roster right now. So we'll see what happens. Going to be interesting days, especially some position groups, place kicker, defensive back group. What's going to happen there at tight end as well? They have to promote at tight end. They just have to. I'd be really disappointed if they didn't. And I think, Muse or Redmond, whichever one is best suited for that 13 personnel grouping, and then Ren Tyler out, Terrence Ferguson out there for the 11 and 12, like they have been doing. So what else do I have here? I'm gonna first, real quickly, the Bucs injury report. As I said, I already covered the Rams injury report. It's basically Landman and Xavier Smith and a bunch of guys on IR. Landman and Smith are the only ones that were limited in practice. The Bucs still hurting a little bit here. They got more guys fully practicing, but some key guys not, or limited anyways. Linebacker Braswell, guard Bredesen, wide receiver Egbuka, running back Irvin, and offensive tackle Wirfs. The big one, Wirfs there, of course, and Egbuka. Now, Irving, they haven't had him for a while, and Sean Tucker is a fully capable backup, so Irving would be returning for the first time in about a month, so he may or may not go, and still not practicing cornerback Dean and outside linebacker Reddick. So a defense that hasn't been up to the Bucs' typical standards is hurting a little bit extra in this Sunday night game. Rams are going to put up some points in this game. It's just a matter of can they put the clamps on Baker Mayfield and company. Could be a really exciting game. This is going to be one of those 15-9 affairs. Not going to happen. Both these teams are going to hit the 20s, and one of them, our Rams, probably is going to get into the 30s, is what I'm thinking. So I thought I'd share up my Rams at Power Rankings. Haven't done this in a while. And by the way, my game picks last week, I had a bad week. I was 1-3. I kind of went out on a limb on a couple of games. I took the Raiders over the Cowboys. I don't know what I was thinking. I took the Giants over the Packers. For a little bit, it looked like it might happen. But Pete Prisco picked up 2 games on me. So I'll get that caught up next week, hopefully. But I'm still looking pretty good. I'm still matching up with the so-called experts across the NFL pretty well, I think. I'll get back into that another week. Now the power rankings. Well, before I get into the power rankings, who are the teams in the green room just outside looking in? I'm still not ready to put the Chicago Bears in the top 12. When you see who's in the top 12, you understand why. But they are, they certainly got something going on there, especially in the late going. I'm not ready to put the Panthers up there. The Chargers drop off, getting shellacked by the Jags. And the Jags, I was tempted to put them in the top 12, but they're just outside looking in. The Ravens, the Steelers, also, I don't think the Ravens and Steelers even match up against the Bears and Chargers at this point, to be honest with you, or the Jags, but the Ravens are certainly coming on. And with Aaron Rodgers banged up, his hand hurt, the Steelers are probably going to be treading water for a little bit. But number 12 here, I have the 49ers, and, they're slowly getting healthy. Brock Purdy's back. This is a really dangerous team with an easy schedule. So we're going to be hearing from them later in the year, not necessarily the Rams, but the NFL will be hearing from them. I think they're still on the road to the playoffs, and their defense is what's that's the big question mark there. Losing Boza and Warner, such a big deal, but credit to the 49ers. They're playing really good football and winning games. Took care of business last week. The Bills are one of those head-scratcher teams. They're my number 11 team, and the number 10 team, the Chiefs, same thing. Are we? Am I overrating these teams just because of what they've done over the last 4 or 5 years? Very possible, but I have dropped them in the rankings significantly as I'm recording this. Bills have their hands full with the Texans, and the Chiefs. They're a team that could miss the playoffs still, right? At number 9, the Packers, another team, man, just up and down. Early in the year, I thought I had them ranked in the top 2 or 3, I'm pretty sure, and they just have not been that impressive. Not sure what to make of them either. Haven't been watching closely. I'm just looking at the scores and some highlights, but that's my gut feeling on the Green Bay Packers right now. A really good team, but are they really a threat to win the Super Bowl? I don't know. I'm not quite there yet. I feel like the Chiefs and the Bills are probably a bigger, more serious Super Bowl threats just because of their quarterbacks right now. And I have no problem with Jordan Love as my quarterback, but he's certainly not in the same tier as Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. That is for sure. 5 through 8. Who's 5 through 8? At number 8, I have those Bucks that are coming to town, and they're another team. They're a scary team, but again, I don't know if they're quite the Super Bowl threat at this point. But I love Baker Mayfield, and I love this offense. Then you have the Detroit Lions, who really stumbled against the Eagles. Is it the Eagles defense or the Lions offense? Is it the Eagles defense seems to be playing really well because this is an electric Lions offense, and maybe they're finally realizing or really reflecting the loss of their offensive coordinator Ben Johnson deep into the season now. The Colts, haven't been as impressive recently, but they're still a solid football team, as noted by some experts. If they can stay on schedule and not fall behind and just be able to run their offense with Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor and keep things under control, they're a really, really good football team. If they fall behind or things go sideways, they turn the ball over, not so much. And then I guess my number 5 team, I guess we got to start taking the New England Patriots really serious. Could we have another Rams-Patriots Super Bowl? I don't know, man. That does not excite me. It excites me the Rams being in the Super Bowl, but can we play someone else, please? That would be really nice. And Drake May is looking like he is, well, we all know he is definitely the real deal. The type of quarterback I think Sean McVay would love to have that guy. That's not going to happen. In my top 4, the Broncos, man, that defense is just incredible. And, we saw that prediction with the mentalist in the Rams locker room. What was it? The Super Bowl score, Rams 23, Broncos 14. Let's remember that. Let's write that down somewhere, and we'll revisit in a couple months. But this is a really good football team, and Bo Nix turns it on when he needs to, but I'm still not sold on their offense. If an offense figures out them and figures out their defense for one game, one playoff game, the Broncos are one and done. And then you got the Seahawks, and I heard it wasn't just me saying this. There are some other folks saying, hey, you know what? The Seahawks really were the better team last week. And I took some heat for saying that. Someone said they are done with our channel because I said that. I think that's what they're getting at. But I'm sorry, man. I mean, give the Rams credit. They figured it out. They won on a bad day. But I really love what the Seahawks did on offense and defense, except for Sam Darnold. Darnold, like I told Ian, if you think about it, if he had taken 4 sacks, they might have won this game. 4 sacks instead of 4 interceptions, they might have been just fine. And then the Eagles, their defense has really turned it on. Very impressive. They made some additions at the trading deadline, and they seem to be paying off. Still some questions about their offense. But, the Eagles have done this before. They seem kind of like they're stagnating, and then they get to the playoffs, and Jalen Hurts figures it out. A.J. Brown starts getting heavily involved in the offense. Saquon Barkley starts busting out 30-yard runs. So they are still, they're my number 2 team here. And number 1, I have the Rams at number 1. And, I hesitated to do that because, this is a Rams podcast. They may sound silly, but I hate to be, that guy just putting my team number 1. But I will say this, it's a very precarious number 1, in my opinion. I think you could make an argument for them being really 4 or 5. They've been on a roll. Matthew Stafford's been on a tear until last week. I get it, but there are some fatal flaws that could bite this team, and hopefully they'll figure it out. But okay, don't get mad. They're my number 1 team for this week. I have them as my number 1 team. Would they beat the Eagles tomorrow at a neutral site? They probably would, actually. It'd probably be a heck of a game. Seahawks, a rematch with them could be, well, we'll play them again in the regular season. Maybe we'll sort out the pecking order with them in a few weeks when we play them. And Broncos, hey, we're going to see them in the Super Bowl. So we'll find out who the better team is in February. So that's my power rankings. I hope you enjoyed that. Tell me in the comments where I'm getting it wrong, where I'm getting it right. And we'll be back with a Saturday morning roundtable with Farbode and Scott. We have the pregame pulse Sunday morning, and then on to the big game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at SoFi Sunday Night Football. It's going to be electric. Out here from Rams Up.